So what I would like to do is I'm going to introduce to you Aaron Johnson. He's a supervisor with the Placer County Probation Department, and Meredith Murdock, also a supervisor with Placer County Probation. And they are here to talk a little bit about probation and what they do. Each of them has a different specialized unit that they supervise. And so I will let them introduce themselves and talk about their discipline. So
thank you very much.
Away.
Okay, so the first question I'm going to start off with is, how many people in the room know what we did in the first 5 minutes we were in here? Anybody? We sized up every face and went, were any of these people on probation with us? And there's one in the back that's marginal. No, I'm just kidding. So this is my alma mater. The other question I have for you guys, okay, everybody knows that your animal is the Wolverine, right? Yeah. Wolverines. Where is the Wolverine? Does anyone know? That is the saddest moment of my life right there. The Wolverine is over in that building right across the parking lot that's got all the nature stuff in it. It used to be in a glass display case in what used to be the library that is no longer there. That's how old I am. So anyhow, my name is Aaron Johnson, as he said, and I oversee the Alternative Sentencing Unit. Alternative Sentencing deals with things other than custody, whether that be residential treatment for drug or alcohol abuse, whether that be ankle monitor, scram equipment, or doing work release, as well as my division also oversees all pretrial services, which are about to be changed significantly in California because of changes to the bail system. And Meredith.
Hello, everyone. My name is Meredith Murdock. My unit that I supervise currently is our adult field supervision unit. So I have anybody that is an officer who has anybody on formal high-risk probation from Granite Bay all the way up to Blue Canyon right before we hit our Tahoe office. So I'm responsible for everybody that's on probation in the county right now, high-risk formal probation, and I deal with their officers. So we can talk a little bit more about the specifics as far as field supervision goes in the future, but if we want to jump into any specific questions, or Aaron has brought some PowerPoint here that we can touch base on as well.
So before we start, any questions from you guys?
What do you mean high risk? As in like
Good question. So we have risk assessments, and we complete those once they get sentenced and convicted of a crime, and they come into our office, and we have a myriad of questions that we ask them. So it deals with, what is their past criminal history, any substance abuse, any mental health issues, do they currently have a place that they're living, is it stable, do they hang out with more criminal associates, or do they have more like healthy people that they're surrounding themselves with? So all of those questions get asked, and then it spits out a number, and depending upon the number, they're either categorized as high, moderate, or low. Does that make sense? Okay.
Great question.
Very good question.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to scoot over to the side, and we'll go ahead and get started with the PowerPoint here, which it looks like maybe it turned off. Now this PowerPoint here, this first one that we have available for you guys, is one that we gave to the counseling faculty about 2 years back. And what it's going to do is it's going to briefly outline a little bit about what probation does. Does anyone know what the two requirements under the law are that probation must achieve? There's two tasks we must achieve in every county. Anyone? How many people in here want to be a probation officer? How many people in here know what a probation officer is? This is probably going to encapsulate all the training you will get in an entire degree program on probation. Probation is like the most discussed faction of law enforcement that exists. We must run a juvenile institution. That is a requirement by law, and we must prepare court reports. Those two things. Anything above and beyond that is considered icing on the cake. So here's our purpose of probation. It's an integral part of the justice system, functions as a legislatively creative support agency for the criminal, juvenile, and family courts. The probation department is committed to ensuring and maintaining a safe community by providing and enhancing a coordinated level of services and programs designed to lessen the impact and reoccurrence of crime and to protect and serve the people of Placer County. That all makes sense, right? Sounds really good, looks good on a wall. And then next we'll have our mission statement. And I'll let you guys read the mission statement. Any questions about the vision or the mission of the department, what it is we do?
I have a question.
Great question.
Would it be useful if I were applying for Placer County probation to know that mission statement before I went to an interview?
It would absolutely help, whether you want to be an intern or whether you want full-time employment. What I will say is Meredith and I were both on one of the last interview panels where we interviewed 37 or 38 people in a 2-day period from as far away as Los Angeles. And one of our first questions was, what is it that probation does? And what is it that makes a field role in probation different than an institution role in probation? And I would say that about half the people gave us just the I'm not sure look. So one thing you want to do is you want to study the mission and vision, which is all available on the internet. You're also going to want to occasionally call into the probation department, see if you could do an interview with an officer on site. And then we also offer volunteer and internship programs through the department as well. And that's a great way to get your foot in the door. We've got 2 former interns working at Juvenile Hall right now, and they're doing a great job, and they understand a lot of the scope of what we do because they volunteered for about a year. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So this stat is about 2 years old. So we had approximately 3,484 adults on probation in Placer County, and an average of 50 new cases every month, and 93% of them are supervised, meaning that we really keep tabs on people in Placer County. If you're going to commit crimes in our community, we're going to keep tabs on you. Now, this is one of those things where it plays that we're allowed to do more than just those court reports or run an institution. Go ahead.
How do you supervise people usually?
It depends on how they risk, and along with the risk levels of low, moderate, and high, we also have categories, and those categories break down the sophistication and criminality of the individual. And so what we'll do in Meredith's case is she will assign territories, usually by zip code or by city, and her officers have different mandates as to how often they must see those individuals in the office, see them in the field, drug test, and other compliances such as that. Great question.
Additionally, we also have specialized caseloads. So we have caseloads for people that have multiple DUIs within 10 years, caseloads for people that are sex offenders, and so it just depends on also what they've been convicted of as to who is going to supervise them and how we supervise them.
AB 109s, right?
Yes, we do. Great question. AB 109. Is anybody familiar with AB 109?
I used to work at County Cemetery, so I was working with a lot of like AB 109 people, and so they were like at risk of going back to jail, and I used to help them with like jobs and stuff. So.
Yes. So that's excellent. I'm glad that you brought that up. So AB 109 is Assembly Bill 109 that was passed in 2011 in October. And what that did was that really restructured who is supervising people that are coming out of prison. So it used to be parole that would supervise anybody that was coming out of prison as opposed to jail. But now probation supervises a large majority of the people coming out of prison as well. So not only are we supervising people that are convicted in our county and sentenced to probation and a little bit of jail time, but we also have very sophisticated people coming out of the prison, and their criminality is much higher. And so we also work with those individuals to make sure that when they're reintegrating in the community, that they have jobs available to them, they have a supportive, safe environment to go home to, they maintain their sobriety. And so that is also another level of supervision that we provide. It's a good question.
Excellent. I'll scoot back this way. Okay, so obviously there's the post-release community supervision. That's going to be the AB 109 folks, about 172 to 200. We also have the mandatory supervision folks, which is about 75 to 100 at any given time. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So things that we do with probationers, they're already explained in court what their terms and conditions are going to be. The judge already goes over and reviews those terms and conditions. Obviously, it's often part of a plea deal, so their attorney's reviewing it with them. The DA is asking for certain terms and conditions. But when we meet with those people, that was cool. How did I do that? So we'll discuss with them, obviously, what their terms of probation are going to be, and there are a plethora of terms. What is one term that you think would be pretty standard on a set of probation orders?
to go to talk with your probation officer to actually go and visit them once a week or whatever the terms are from your particular sentence and check in, make sure you're doing everything you're supposed to.
Excellent. So spot on. It's going to be as directed. So it has to be reasonable. I can't expect that if somebody has moved to LA that I make them come in every single day to meet with me. But I can't expect if they move to LA and they're still on Placer County probation that they come in every 2 weeks to meet with me. What's another term that you might think probation would have if we're going to supervise people and watch people? Throw out some ideas.
They have to cut off all contact with any gang affiliations.
That often is a term if they have gang violence in their history.
Drug tests.
Absolutely, drug tests. You know what that's like? That's like an intern job. That's what that is. Here, go in the bathroom with that person and have them pee in this bottle. No, we don't have the interns do that. We do that.
Making sure they get a job.
Making sure they get a job. Often employment is one of the terms that they must adhere to, as well as how about search and seizure, which would be which amendment? Fourth Amendment. You guys are on fire. On fire. The Fourth Amendment. What would it be like to know that anytime, day or night, with or without a warrant, I could knock on your door, come into your house, and check all of your worldly belongings? It's pretty crazy, right? It's pretty crazy. But we do get that. We get that authority to make sure that people are adhering to their terms and conditions. We gather any identifying information during the intake process. Another question?
Only for like high risk people, going to their house like at random times at night, or is it for everyone that's on probation?
I can't let you know that. No, I can let you know that. Your tells are horrible.
Like, how does that work?
We really do weigh it on risk. So we do have special operations where they are conducted certain times, day or night, or on weekends for certain types of clientele that we need to know what they're up to all the time, whether that be DUI or 290 or PRCS. We also have times, though, that maybe you're looking for somebody on warrant or you're looking for somebody that's associated with somebody else. So I know for our DUI enforcement teams, the number one killer of individuals in Placer County that is 100% preventable is DUI. And did anyone see our DUI event that we had a couple months back? I think, yeah, I saw you out there. More people die from that than any other preventable thing in Placer County. So we have a special team of DUI officers and a special team of people that sign up for additional shifts where we go out on evenings, early mornings, holidays, weekends. I've knocked on doors on January 1st at 7 a.m. and you should see the look on people's faces that like to drink because they realize they're going to jail, and they never for a million years would have thought that probation would show up on a holiday. But if you have an abstain term on your terms that says you may not drink ever again while on probation, we're going to make sure you're not drinking. And follow that up with drug testing. We can get samples about a week old and tell whether or not you've had alcohol, and then we also have devices that'll tell us right on the spot whether or not you've had alcohol.
With those classified as high risk, are those the type of people where the first mistake they go back to jail, or do they have things where they get a warning the first time and the second time they have to go back?
That is a great question, and the answer to that is yes. Certain high-risk offenders are on zero tolerance caseloads, and zero tolerance means the smallest infraction, you go back into custody. That's not usually the intent with the bulk of probation, though. The bulk of probation is we realize that somebody that has an issue with drugs is likely going to have a dirty drug test again. So we don't want to take you to jail every time you have a dirty drug test if you have a drug issue. What we want to do is get you connected to resources in your community and family supports and make sure that we get you back to sobriety and get you successfully through your term of probation, which is anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Great question.
The person that has search and seizure on their probation, if they're in a car with other people that are not on probation, do you get to search everyone that's in that car?
Okay, this is a great question too, and then I'm going to just reconfirm with your instructor that this is not going to my chief. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, it's anything that you reasonably would have access to. So she was asking if you're in a vehicle and one of the people in the vehicle has search and seizure as a term, can you search everybody in the vehicle? And the answer is yes and no. I'll let Meredith respond to that.
He's going to defer to me. Okay. Not necessarily search people that are in the vehicle, but we can certainly search everything in the vehicle that person could have access to, right? So if they're the driver, we pretty much have carte blanche to search that entire vehicle. Because they should really know what's in the vehicle that they're driving and they're assuming responsibility for. If they're just in the passenger seat, but you could articulate that they maybe have access to like underneath the seat or something like that, we could search a little bit wider of an area.
But can you search like other people's like belongings? Like if the guy that's in probation is in the front in the passenger seat and I'm behind him and my purse is behind him, can you search my purse?
Could he?
Does he have
reasonably
access
reach
to it?
It's getting searched.
Possibly.
And the other thing is we will actually search everyone in the vehicle, but only for what? Who knows what? For my safety, right? I'm not going to pull, let's say this is a car right here. These three individuals are a car. You're driving.
Oh, that's awesome.
I guess you're chauffeuring because you got no passenger next to you. These two are just, chilling in the back of your Hyundai XL or whatever. And are those still in? Those are in, right? You'll help me out. Hyundai? Okay. So these two guys are in the back smoking a big old bowl because, hey, it's California, it's legal. I don't care. And you get pulled over and all of a sudden it's, oh, I am on searchable probation. I'm pulling everybody out of the vehicle and I'm at least checking for weapons myself just to make sure that as I'm making that contact that I'm not going to have any issue where someone in the back seat has a knife or a gun and I end up dead. So that's the only other thing we'd be able to search for. Great question. Okay, we conduct a risk and needs assessment. Again, this tool is very valuable. We are using a company called NCCD, the National Council for Crime and Delinquency, developed a tool. That organization has been around for over 100 years, and that's the tool that we're using, and it is spot on. We have two versions, one called a CASE, which is for adults, one called a JACE, which is for juveniles, and it helps us get the most appropriate level of services for those individuals. It helps us case plan and it helps us get that person to the finish line. And then that talks about case planning at the bottom and coming up with goals. Case plans involve criminality. So whatever leads to your crime is what I'm going to focus on, teaching you to not do anymore. So a lot of people that are drug addicts, they're not drug addicts because they don't have a job. So my top goal is not to get you a job thinking that you'll stop using drugs. My top thing is I need to get you resources to stop using drugs, and then if by byproduct I end up getting you a job, that's great too. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so then we have supervision practices. We have the contact standards based on risk, which Meredith was just discussing. And then we look at the best practices and offering evidence-based programs. So we are a real front runner in law enforcement at looking at what programs are successful and why, and adapting those programs to our clientele. We focus on reentry quite a bit. So anybody ever heard of Placer Reentry? Anybody ever taken a tour of any of our facilities? Anybody been to court? No. Have you been out there?
I've been before, but not out here. We're in the Bay, so
Okay. Well, we have a very big program called the Placer Reentry Program, in which we have the Sacramento County Office of Education has a facility in our building in Roseville and a facility close to our facility in Auburn that actually teaches a lot of kind of social norm classes to the clients that we serve, and also helps sync them up with getting jobs, working on applications and resumes, things of that nature. Working really at the core of what the issue is, as well as we also have a construction training program at the Roseville Fairgrounds that we send people to get unionized skills and then ultimately union jobs. We do have specialized caseloads, and then we also do extra activities such as warrant sweeps and DUI sweeps. Okay, next slide. I can just push the button. Sure. Just enter? We'll find out.
Down arrow, I think.
Do you guys still call it the down arrow? Okay. So, she said no. She said no. Well, okay, what do you call the thing that looks like a, what do you guys, what's the hashtag? That's a pound. It's a pound. Okay, you guys are killing me. Okay, so our partners in Placer County are vast and include nonprofits and government agencies. Meredith, could you tell us some of the agencies you've worked with in the last 3 months?
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, no, some of the agencies that we work with frequently, obviously, we're going to be the Placer County Sheriff's Department, Rockland Police Department, Auburn Police Department. We also work with Health and Human Services. So we do have our social workers that sit amongst our probation officers and all of our various offices. Obviously, we work with our PrEP that Aaron was just describing, our Placer Reentry team. We also work with various nonprofit organizations throughout the community, like CORE, for example. They're the ones that we have a contract with right now that help provide our people that are on probation outpatient and inpatient substance abuse treatment. So they're somebody that we partner up with frequently. We actually have officers now sitting at Roseville Police Department, and we work with them on a daily basis. Lincoln Police Department, obviously, and then we work with some other people to provide assistance to people that need 52-week batterers class if they've committed some sort of domestic violence issues, or 18-month DUI programs if they have gotten more than 2 DUIs in the last 10 years. So we have our hands in a little bit of every various entity throughout the county. Also, Public Defender's Office is somebody that we work with frequently as well. We often have to go to meetings with judges to sit down and talk about, maybe we need to restructure a program to make it more successful. So just a various group of different people.
Have you ever had to work with state parks?
I have had to work with state parks
What
and
about-
CAL FIRE,
What about Fish and Game?
Fish and Game,
You name it, we work with
Union
everybody.
Pacific Railroad Police. We work with everybody. What he's getting at are some of the different sweeps that we do throughout the community to also help with our transient population. That's one of our new specialized caseloads that we have, since that is a very hot topic right now, that we go out with different agencies and try to find out where the transient camps are, and we provide them with resources. And if they're unwilling after the 3rd, 4th, 5th time that we've contacted them to maybe work with us to get housing or sobriety, then we can start to enforce the law in a little different way. So.
All right. We also work a lot with the network of care. Now, Placer County is a very fortunate county in that it has very deep resources, meaning they have money. They have lots and lots of money. So we are what's known as a dual jurisdiction county, which is kind of rare, and we're one of the front runners of that as well. So on the juvenile side of probation, juvenile probation officers are often housed with Health and Human Services staff, social workers. The dual jurisdiction court is a court that allows a youth that is involved in delinquency court for crimes to be in dependency court for parental issues. They can be in both courts at the same time under the same judge, which is huge. Most counties don't do that. And that's part of that network of care, which is this whole village mentality of how we work with individuals. We also work very closely with the DA's office and the victim advocates at the DA's office. There's a lot of resources available to anybody that's a victim of a crime, whether that be financial, therapy, certain types of classes. They are another resource that we rely on to help individuals that, again, are a victim of a crime. Down arrow. All right, so job training and placement assistance. We will help people looking for jobs, and we have programs such as Job Seekers. We also have Golden Sierra, not to be confused with the place you guys get car loans at, which is Golden One. So Golden Sierra will help you get a job and will help you work on your resume, and my understanding was we'll spend about $8,000 per individual to get them up and running into a career field. And again, we have that as a resource. We have the CRT team, which the community resource team is a monthly meeting of many of our nonprofit and government vendors, all in one location, that when you're first put on probation, you're required to go there and meet with at least 6 different booths. And what we found was, I'm just going to pick on you because you're in the front row. That's how it goes. You know how it goes. That's just how it is. What's your name?
William.
William. Can I call you Bill?
Will?
Will.
Yeah. I don't like Bill.
What about Billiam? Okay, so we'll go with Will. So Will here gets put on probation. I make Will go to this event, and he can get resources with housing, jobs, dependency, maybe parenting, whatever it happens to be, all in one room. And he can get all that information and go back home. A few years ago, before that existed, I'd say, hey, Will, go meet with this counselor and go drive 20 minutes. And then the next time I meet you, hey, go meet with this person over here. Go meet with this person over here. And you'd be driving for the first 6 months trying to go to all these different things. Well, now we bring it all together in one spot once per month. Again, we have Northern California Construction Training located at the fairgrounds. We just got a brand new facility that's new to us, but not new to the fairgrounds, and we're rebuilding it. And then our prep center, which again is infused in Auburn and in Roseville. Down arrow. Okay, so here it's talking about what the prep center does. It removes barriers to programming and employment. We have one individual. I should have probably tried to see if I could have gotten it off of KCRA, but we had a young man, a young family man, facing 4 years of prison. That's a long time. His daughter was fighting what they thought at the time was terminal cancer. And the judge was getting ready to send this young man to prison for 4 years. We entered him into the reentry program prior to sentencing. So he's not guilty yet. He just knows it's coming. Along with doing reentry, he also does the construction training program. He stays in that program for about a year until he successfully graduates from both. The judge then asks for the input of probation to prepare a report on what our recommendation would be, whether or not we still thought prison was the most appropriate, because he had been found ineligible for probation. This individual was granted probation by the judge because people from prep showed up on his behalf, NCCT showed up, probation showed up. He is now building skyscrapers in downtown Sacramento with the Ironworkers Union. He has been clean and sober for well over a year. His daughter is now cancer-free, and he's looking to come back and get a job with us in some capacity to be able to be parts of these programs to give back. And that's just another one of the, I got goosebumps right now. I got goosebumps. It's just one of those, it makes you feel good because that's what our job is. My job as a peace officer in California is never to go around and go, what are you doing wrong? It's what can I help you with? Every law enforcement agency has a different angle on what it is their responsibility. Could we write a traffic ticket? Yes. Could we arrest you for taking a candy bar from a store? Yes, but that's not the scope of what probation does. We are the peace officers of the court. We report to a judge. So what we're trying to do is get you successfully through your term of probation. We also have in-custody programs for that prep. So you can actually start these betterment classes while you're in custody serving your sentence, as well as soon to, knock on wood, we're going to put that construction training into the jails as well. And that's going to be through some grants that are out there. Down arrow. So common hurdles. Imagine this. And this, again, was a presentation that we've given to some staff here at Sarah College. What is the difference between an adjudication and a conviction? Anybody? Anybody? It's for a water bottle this time. Will, don't let me down. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Just make it up.
Take a shot.
Can you Google it? Probably. Just don't Facebook it because they're watching everything now. Kind of, sort of close, but not quite. So adjudication is what happens to juveniles. Juveniles are never convicted unless they're convicted as an adult. So certain types of crimes, murder, attempted murder, certain sexual crimes, those they'll get a conviction and they'll be sentenced as an adult. But adjudication is to give youth another chance. So the justice system already looked, so who here, okay, how many people in here have a real job? A real job. Go to work, get money, everything? Okay. And it's not illegal. It's not trafficking anything. Okay. Just checking. How many of you remember on your application process there was a question that says, have you committed or been convicted of a felony in the last 7 years? Yep. Often it says, have you been convicted? That's the reason this exists, so that youth did not have to mark that they were adjudicated because they weren't convicted. So it gave them another chance as being a youth. The timeline for disclosing felonies and misdemeanors, we talk about that a little bit, again, for youth. There's been a lot of changes in juvenile law lately where they're sealing records sooner and sooner. Maybe you can speak to juvenile record sealment a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. Let's see here. January of 2016, I want to say, they passed a new law. So anybody that was adjudicated within the juvenile justice system and they successfully completed probation and it came time to close out their case, the judge would seal it immediately on the bench, as opposed to previous to that, we would close the case and then the person, once they were over 18, could come back in, fill out an application with us, pay a fee, and request that we research their case and determine whether or not they'd be eligible for sealment. So, you know, if their case is sealed, then nobody can ever have access to anything that they did during the commission of that crime, including, we can't even see it anymore. And it's in our computer system, and we're not even allowed to see it anymore. So it is a benefit to them if they can get it sealed. And there's a few things the judge looks at. Number one, what was the crime that they committed? Number two, again, like I said, were they successful on probation? Did they continue to behave in a way that was delinquent? Did they continue to commit crimes? Or did they violate their probation in any sense? So those are all things that are taken into consideration.
Is that sealment? Is that like the same thing as being expunged? Or is that, are those different?
Technically, expunge and seal are different. but they're often synonymous with one another.
Right, because for expungement purposes, that, my understanding is it's completely taken off of your rap sheet, essentially, is what you would call it.
Never happened. Not that something happened, but we can't let you see it. You won't even know that there was something sealed.
Who would be able to see that if you guys can't see it?
Certain branches of the military, like FBI type stuff, certain things it's never going to hide. But what they wanted to prevent was people having their records seen by just companies that were investigating whether or not they were going to hire them. And that brings up another point. Anyone interested in any career in law enforcement, even if it's not probation, and I'm going to be sad if every hand doesn't go up at the end when I ask who wants to be a probation officer, and only like it's just me and Will here again. But what it comes down to is this. When you are filling out your application, be brutally honest in every answer you put down. We have a saying in law enforcement, if you lie, you die. And it is true, because here's how it works. Will, have you ever, you don't have to be honest about this, but have you ever smoked weed? And he writes down, no, I've never smoked weed, I've never taken, I'm just pretending, you know, I've never smoked a bowl, and things are cool, right? And then here's what happens. Then one of us gets to do the criminal background before you get hired, and I call, what's your name?
Zach.
Zach? I'll just call you Zach. So I call Zach, and I'd be like, hey, do you remember Will? Because Will put you down as one of his people that we could contact. He's trying to get a job. And you'd be like, dude, I haven't seen Will forever since we used to smoke bowls back behind the gym. And I'm looking because Zach is still smoking bowls, and he just threw you under the bus. And so I'm looking at that going, well, that's weird because Will put, I have never smoked a bowl. And Zach just answered, yeah, that's my smoking buddy from 10 years ago. And then that immediately goes into a file that is never to be hired. It's that serious. Is it not called a bowl anymore? What is it called? Oh, good cover. I like what you did there. Oh, is it? So because of that, so we have people that are former gang members. We have people that have had former times of dabbling in something like marijuana back when it was illegal.
My question is, what if it's been so long and you don't know? Is it better to put yes?
You don't know if you smoked a bowl? That is some good weed.
No, just like anything, like any question that's been asked. So let's just say it's asking a random question. You don't know on the top of your head, like, how many times have you done something, or how many times is it better just to put yes, I've done it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Give me an example of a question you think you might not remember. Because number one, you got to think of this. You could probably ask me any question, and I'm old. I'm old enough to be everybody's parent in this room. Well, some of you. And I can remember every question on a job application. You only got to go back like 5 years.
Oh, I thought you had to.
Right? Like, I'm not going to ask you, like, you know, which room were you born in? You know, I got the hospital. I can't remember the room.
Not the background packet. They go back far, Aaron. The background packets go back far.
Well, it'd be like, did you ever fail a class? You know you failed a class. Everyone knows that. You had a question?
So if you're being brutally honest on your application, and then like, oh yeah, I did smoke weed, is that like, are you still gonna be putting that like never hire?
Because here's another thing that probation likes. We like life experiences. Because you're going to be able to relate to people differently because of the life experience that you've had. I'm going to get you in a second. I got one right back here. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I kind of hear that some places like the military and law enforcement, if you haven't smoked weed in 2 years, you're good. If you promise to never do it again.
Yeah, a lot of them do have that where they want to see what that period of sobriety is. Absolutely. I don't know that our department has a distinct cutoff line.
So when you do, like, what's the instant disqualification even if you do tell the truth, like on a criminal background packet, like?
Committed a sex crime. Been convicted of a felony. Too many bankruptcies.
Right, that's a good one.
If you had like 2 or 3 bankruptcies, you might not be able to get a job with us.
So if you get convicted of like a sex crime or
Bankruptcies. And does everybody understand why bankruptcies are a big deal? It's because we would be fearful that you aren't good at spending money. You get into this role, you have a lot of authority, you're searching people's houses. What's to say that you don't just steal a little bit here and there to cover for yourself because you have a spending problem?
Or can't be easily bribed.
That too. So just keep that in mind. It's always really good for you if you want to make a career in law enforcement to also be very fiscally responsible. So
I literally got her to show up for a Dutch Brothers, so it doesn't take much.
So like for people like me who have like hearing problems or like people of honor, wherever they want to go into probation, how does that work?
I think you just go through the normal steps of the application process. Starting as an intern is a great role. And like I said, we are looking for everybody of every background.
Cause I already have like experience like working with AB 109. I had an internship for County of San Mateo for former foster youth, so I have that experience. So like, if we have that experience, does that help us?
Absolutely.
Get a boost up for an internship?
Absolutely.
Or?
yes.
I would say yes. Great question. So other common hurdles, people that had aspirations for military service, this helps them with military service as well. Adjudication, not as bad as conviction. We try to break down any unrealistic expectations. And the other thing that we shared with the school when we were out here dealing with some of the counselors is there's a lot of additional funding available if you've had prior probation status by certain ages. So some folks, maybe even in this room, I don't want to show of hands, but some folks may be getting additional scholarships to be here in this classroom right now because they had an adjudication as a youth. So there's some great programs out there. And again, that's just the way the state and probation looks at getting additional tries and getting your life together and having good positive effects. And I believe that's the end of that slideshow, but I'm open to any questions, or I have a really bad slideshow I can put up too. It's bad. It's bad. Like all the fonts are all wonky. We can do that. How do we pull that up? The other thing I'm going to do while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and
You want me to talk about some of this stuff?
let Meredith talk about a load-bearing vest. Meredith and I actually wrote the proposal that got our department these vests.
So, thank you. So this is obviously Aaron's vest. This is not my vest. But that being said, just to let you guys know, probation officers, we are full peace officers, okay? So what that means is we obviously have the right to carry a firearm on or off duty. We are one of the few probation departments in California that arms everybody in our department. So everybody goes through our firearms training course and gets armed. We also are one of the few probation departments in California that also has, it's different than my vest in a different spot, baton or a collapsible baton. Oh,
Anybody
God.
ever seen a collapsible baton?
Let me just move.
Here's what I'm going to do. I don't want to freak anybody out. I'm going to hit Meredith as hard as I can. I'm going to extend it. I'm not going to hit anybody, and then I'll pass it around. Nobody hit each other, all right? So this is called an RCB. Who here has ever heard of an ASP? An ASP? An ASP is
These
little
are better.
more than a car antenna. It
Yeah,
is
these are
thin,
better.
It is lightweight. It is ridiculous. The reason you see videos on the internet of people getting beat over and over again is an ASP weighs nothing and it does not take a suspect down. This is about 3.5 pounds. It has most of its weight forced at the tip. This in one strike will break any bone in the human
Okay,
body.
so I've been hit with one of these during a fight one time by one of my coworkers in the face. Yeah, and I do have a cracked eye socket still. So that being said, just keep that in mind. I didn't let go of the dude, by the way, though, so stayed on him.
So our department,
Thank you.
When it took on the role of deciding we were going to go to another level of force, went with this specific brand and this specific model because we did not want to be portrayed on the internet as just beating people over and over. We want to know that if I have to take an assailant down, I take them down with 1 or 2 swings, the fight is over, we move on in life. And it really is.
It does its job.
We have some instructors that have been injured through, what do they call it, the red man suit, which is like that thick of foam, and they will have major bruising taking strikes from that in a suit built to take strikes from that.
So when you're trying to take someone down, do you hit them anywhere where you can to take them down, or do you hit them, or do you hit them in a specific spot?
There are zones, and she's actually
Oh yeah, so I'll also
instructor
explain
for
a
that,
little
so
bit
we'll let her explain that.
more of my role too in my department. I am a firearms instructor. I gave that for my department, but I can still teach it like any of the academies. And I also am a weaponless defense instructor. So any of our like hand-to-hand combat that I teach to our department, and then out at the college as well. And I don't teach or do updates for the RCB, but yes, there are certain zones that you're allowed to strike. We definitely want to avoid the spine, face, neck, groin area. Those are all areas that you want to avoid when you're striking. So
Now, something to keep in mind, how many people follow any of the media? Obviously, everyone in here has some interest in law enforcement, right? Either enough that you're curious or you want to go into some realm of law enforcement. I was having a discussion with a friend the other day that was asking why so many individuals get shot. That was asking why so many individuals get tased. Kind of a little bit more of a liberal stance. And I said, you do realize that when we come upon somebody, that there's a force factor that has to be applied. In that, if you're cordial with me, I'm cordial with you. If you want to throw down and fight with me with fists, I'm not going to fight with my fists because that's only mutual combat. I cannot win a fight fist to fist, right? All we can do is mutually. You're going to hit me, I'm going to hit you. We're going to do this for a while. So we're going to move up in our levels of force. I'm either going to use OC spray or I'm going to use a baton, and I'm going to stop that threat. If you come at me with a knife, am I going to pull out my pocket? I'm like, hold on a second. Get my pocket knife out. No, you're going to likely get shot.
Yeah.
That's just how that's going to work. Now, does anyone know how far away someone can strike me with a knife? So let's say this young man back here. What's your name? Roger. Roger? That's my middle name. I like you, Roger. You're going to get a water bottle. Sorry, Will.
I know how it is now.
and he caught it.
Down arrow. So right now, I'm going to pace this out. Everybody count with me. I'm on 0. First step.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, so here's Roger. I was here. I'm standing talking to Roger. I have my hands up. We always have our hands up. As I can tell who's in law enforcement, the hands are always up. And Roger's standing. Roger decides today's not the day I'm going back to jail for my violation of probation. Roger has a knife in his pocket. Roger can run. Roger can run down from there and stab me before I could draw my gun and shoot him from that far away. And we have tested it time and time and time again. It is proven 21 feet is the minimum distance for someone to stab you before you can draw and shoot. So when you see these videos on TV and it's two guys this close and a guy's got a knife, drop the knife, and they finally shoot him and everybody's like, oh, it looked like he was starting to. No, I mean, that's a foot and a half, 21 feet. And how we do this at range, which is really cool, and Meredith's been a big part of this, we'll go back to back at the firing line. So Meredith will be against my back. I'll be facing a target I'm going to shoot. She decides, and if our backs are touching, she decides to start running. As soon as our backs aren't touching, I draw, I shoot, we look and see where she's at. She'll be 21 feet or more away every single time. So it always goes, the favor always goes to the first one to do action, not reaction. So think about that when you're seeing these videos, when you're hearing these things, when you look at social media, you got to put that into a perspective. So most of my contacts in my career, I'm going to use Roger again here, are about here. They're about arm's length, right? Because I'm talking to him in an office, there's a desk in between us, talking to him at a traffic stop, talking to him at his house. How you doing? Good to see you, Roger. How's your mom? Things are good. How's that water bottle I got you? Pretty sweet. Yeah. Do not put weed in that. Bad. So when you take all that into consideration, these are things that you got to think about. So again, I think the media perception at times can be very disfavorable to law enforcement. All the time.
But that being said, we could go on for hours regarding that topic. But just to touch base on, so like I said, we do carry those collapsible batons. We do have our firearm. We have pepper spray. Okay. You don't want to get sprayed. I hate pepper spray.
Yeah, pepper spray is the gift that keeps on giving. You'll spray it once and your skin will burn for 4 days.
We have our handcuffs. I only have one pair on, but we usually have about 3 each. 3. Well, sometimes you have large people that you need to put 2 sets of cuffs on, and that only leaves you with maybe 1 more.
Or bad shoulders. People with bad shoulders.
Yeah. Okay. And beyond that, obviously, we carry our flashlights, and then these are ballistics vests. Ballistic panels are in these vests. Okay, and so that is only going to stop certain rounds, probably a shotgun, and probably like a 9mm or a 40mm, but maybe a 45 maybe. But beyond that, if it's like an assault rifle style, the velocity of the bullets coming out, it's just going to go right through this. So we've tested those out at range too, obviously.
So part of why we came up with this, one second, is Meredith is wearing the minimum office attire of being armed, which is badge and gun. If an incident occurs, all she has to do is reach behind her at her desk, throw this over the top of her. She has every piece of equipment she's issued. And it moves the load from her lower back and hips to her shoulders and upper torso, which means less back injuries, which hopefully extends her
I will
careers.
stand up and hold that and estimate
Tell us
how
how
much.
heavy, and this does not have a radio in it right now, and this does not have extra other tchotchkes that we put in.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
So all day,
What do you
all
think?
night, in the heat.
20 pounds?
So at one point,
Yeah.
Good 20, 25 pounds?
all your gear together will be about 30 to 35 pounds by the time you're fully loaded.
How much do you, on average, how much weight do you carry?
I feel like I'm on clouds when I get home. So you're just like, wow, this is amazing. I always get this backwards because I want to say it's
know.
2A.
I think that's what it is.
I believe it's 2A because there's the number in the letter in the, yeah, I want to say it's 2A. It's basically for just about any handgun round. Anything more than that, it gets impractical. And the other thing that they found is the way the velocity of a bullet travels, steel plates actually ricochet rounds into your face. So you actually have to have ceramic plates, and those weigh a little bit more. It gets weird. So we're not going to wear as much as like a set team from the sheriff's office is gonna wear. They have a lot of stuff, but they are also only wearing that for a specific incident. They're not wearing it all day for their traditional field work. Good question.
And keep in mind that these vests also don't protect you from knives. So a knife or a bladed instrument will just penetrate right through that as well.
Yeah, Kevlar does not stop knives.
No.
They do make a stab vest though for institutions.
What are stab vests made out of?
What are stab vests
Well,
made of?
one that I know would work would be chainmail, but that's probably not right. That's a little
I don't
archaic.
know.
I'm not sure, but it's not Kevlar.
I work with state parks, and the majority of our rangers wear knife-proof ones. They don't wear plates.
Really?
Yeah, the majority of them. At least around here in Capitol.
That is a dangerous job that you have, yeah. That's one of the more dangerous jobs, I think, in law enforcement, honestly. Yeah. So you're by yourself a lot out there.
Well, most of them wear. I'm a park aide,
Oh, okay.
but most of them wear the snap-proof vests. I think there's only 2 of them that wear plates.
Yeah, everybody's going to have a little bit of their own. We have a minimum standard so that officers can only switch or add certain things because we want to have that liability mitigated as much as possible, that everybody had at least a certain level of equipment issued to
And
them.
that we're identified when we're out in the public as well, too, so. Because we're one of the few probation departments that also kind of has, in a sense, like a minimum dress standard, too. So I think San Bernardino's the only other one. They actually dress like police officers. They're the only ones in the state. What were we gonna say?
Yeah, nobody's asked that question yet. So it's only a couple years ago that we finally went officially to a look. So for a lot of years, we would wear Hawaiian shirts to work and be completely incognito. I did. It looked good.
You did.
It was, yeah. Because nothing stands out less than a Hawaiian shirt in the middle of Roseville. Granite Bay it fits. But what we found was it started becoming too much of a liability for our officers' safety. So for a lot of years of my career, and I've been doing this, I'm coming up on my 14th year, I would be completely concealed. You would have no idea who I am. You'd pass me on the street and you'd have no idea I got a gun and a vest on and all my gear. You wouldn't know. But the issue became I'm doing a knock announce at Will's house, checking to see if he's complying with his no weed. And Will decides to throw down with me in his driveway because he wants to get away. And so he and I are tussling. Tussling? No? Okay, tussling. We're tussling. We're tussling. And a neighbor sees it and just thinks it's Will screwing around, or I don't want to get involved. It's just Will getting in a fight with some dude. Maybe it was some guy checking to buy a car or something. Well, with identifiers, a passerby would go, oh my God, that's law enforcement in a fight with an individual. I'm going to call and get them help. So we started realizing that this completely concealed all the time was not going to be a safe method. And I've actually had people in neighborhoods go, we saw someone go over a fence and then bang on a door a lot, and we think it was you guys, but we're not sure. What are we supposed to do? And then we're like, it's time to really start identifying. Mm-hmm. Question? No? Okay. Good questions. Any other, oh, there we go. Zach's on fire.
This is kind of like off topic, but are those just stickers on the bottom of your magazines?
That is so off topic, Zach.
I see
Are those
that.
just stickers or are those actually?
Those are stickers. Those are
He
stickers.
put stickers on his magazines. If anyone-
Now-
I just seen that too.
Now, I can be a little pompous about my stickers, and here's why. You get to range, and our department uses Glocks, and this is actually my Glock, but what happens when you have 20 people shooting and everybody's magazine exchange is on the ground, you're going, which one was my magazine? And, because you don't want somebody's clapped out magazine. We don't still say clapped out? What's it good? That means like it's all broken and falling apart. Busted. Okay. I don't want someone's. I'm so close. I don't want somebody's busted magazine. I want my magazine that I know I maintain. So I found this company that makes a gazillion different stickers specific to the caliber and the type of magazine. Now the other thing is I actually did always know mine before because I carry a 40, and there's only about 3 of us that carry 40s. Almost everybody else carries a 9.
I don't. Yeah, I carry a 9.
I like to stop.
It doesn't make that much of a difference.
Stop it.
It doesn't. It doesn't. By the way, the FBI all ordered 9s this year, so yeah.
Now we got questions. Stickers are popular, Zach.
So for the pepper spray, does every probation officer have to carry it? And in order to carry it, you have to be pepper sprayed.
Yes and yes. Every probation officer carries it. And yes, the training that we go through, you get sprayed, and then you actually have to fight through it and handcuff somebody and show that you can actually still do your job while you're working through the pepper spray. Because reality is, if I were to pull it out in here or outside and use it, and there's some wind, there's going to be some kickback on me, and I'm going to have to, or if we're in a room, we're all going to feel it. But as a peace officer, I still need to do my job and be able to work through that.
So it'll blind you, it'll make big snot bubbles come out of your nose, and you'll be sucking them in when you're breathing back. And then it happens. And then you can't breathe, and then it burns. So between all that, and then you still
And then you go home and take a shower, and then it goes all back.
I'll get you, and then I'll get you.
And I asked because like I wasn't pepper sprayed, but I was in the crossfire as a pepper spray. I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe, anything. How are you gonna handcuff someone and do your job when you're blind? I just think,
We're trained.
Yeah,
Professionals.
it didn't blind me. It didn't blind me, but you know, it was hard for me to see, but you still know what your goal and objective is, so.
And they've got
Yeah.
one over here, and then I'll come back over
I
to you
know.
and you.
What are the requirements to be a probation officer?
Great question.
You must be at least 21 years of age. You must have at least 60 units of college, and you must pass a criminal background check and certain physical abilities, but not a whole lot.
And I think now for Placer County, it has to be 60 units that have been within some sort of a social science or related closely to criminal justice.
We prefer bachelors. We will get you in the door with an AA, and then they'll keep moving you up, and you can continue your education from there. And then I've got you, and then back over here a little bit.
So say with pepper spray, you have to pepper spray. Do you also have to be tased?
We do not carry
We don't carry
tasers, so we do
tasers.
not have to be tased.
But it's not fun.
Thank God.
That's another story.
So what happens if you're in like the crossfire or you actually just get pepper sprayed and you wear contacts?
It
Yeah,
burns.
it's not fun. Yeah, you have to take them out as soon as possible and just rinse your eye out with as much water as you can. Yeah.
And I thought I had, did I have,
You make sure that you're not wearing your contacts that day. Yeah.
wear glasses and try to block it. Yeah. Did I have a hand right here? I did have a hand right here.
Do you guys go to like a police academy or how does that?
Another good question. Yeah, so we go through something called Probation Core, and it's 6 weeks right now. And so we go through a myriad of like court report writing, and there is also a physical component to it. And then after you go through that, then you can go through your firearms class. It's a week long.
So as opposed to traditional post, which most law enforcement does, we do core modules. So I had juvenile core, I had juvenile placement core, I had field core. So as you were getting ready to go into a particular role, you go into that bulk of classes. So instead of getting it all up front, and maybe some of it's not going to apply to your career until 10 years later, you get those trainings as you go, and they're anywhere from about 3 to 6 weeks each. And so you just keep doing different core assignments. I had a hand back there.
Can you give us an idea of how Prop 47 impacted the probation?
It let everybody onto the streets.
That was Prop 47?
Yes. That's a great question. And if, can I get it? What's the worst I could do? Hit that iPhone right there? So that's a good question. That was seated at the beginning. So Prop 47 was the Safe Schools and Communities Act. So for those of you that are all now young voters, read what they write because they lied. It had nothing to do with safe schools and communities at all. It had everything to do with reducing who was in prison, putting them back on the streets, reducing what we call crimes. So now almost everything's a misdemeanor. Jails are overcrowded. It didn't do anything.
Do you guys know what that means? That means if I find methamphetamine on him and it's a usable amount, it's a ticket. He doesn't even go to jail anymore. I can arrest him if I want to, but why would I want to if I can just write him a ticket and send him on his way? So, as opposed to before, it was a felony and you would go to prison for it.
So the spirit under which it would be safer schools and communities was, instead of spending all of our resources on lower level drug offenses, which is what they deemed, and non-violent crimes, what we would do is take that money and put it into services. We are just now 2 years since that passed, and we're just now finally seeing the state giving money to counties to get services going. So it took them 2 years of doing nothing to give us a little bit of money to start to do something. So it has not been any safer.
So how's that supposed to teach people a lesson? Like, oh, here's a ticket, like...
It doesn't.
That's what I'm saying, like, I feel like prison, or like, it doesn't even matter if, if it's like 2 years, like, 2 years being confined, like...
I've literally had officers arrest somebody and that person be released before my officers get back to the office. It's that bad at times. You got to watch what you're voting for. You got a hand up here.
To work in the field, do you have to have a BA, or do you have to have for a jury, you have to have an AA, and to work in the field, you have to have a BA, or?
It depends, because what they do is they weigh how much other experience you have in what other types of roles, whether it's group homes, other types of law enforcement, internships. They weigh a lot of different pieces.
So could someone work in the field and still be in their AA, like get an internship? Could they still be going to school and get their AA and get an actual job with you guys?
Yes, we do have examples of that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Do you know of any like assembly bills or anything out there that are working to like kind of rework Prop 47?
I know of nothing up and coming.
I'm not aware of
I know that we just finally got some grant funding in Placer County under Prop 47, and it has been a very big task. Hopefully it will be successful. It's kind of a pilot program, but yeah, nothing that I've seen to reverse any of that.
No, I was just stretching, sorry.
She just wants a water bottle.
What is the most valuable career advice you guys can give us?
You want to go and stay in school?
You can say
Wait, could they hear that? Stay in school. Now, be brutally honest. Apply yourself.
Yes.
Think outside the box. I don't need any more people that can only do exactly what something tells them to do. I need people that can come up with things that'll work and will think outside the box and can apply those.
And
Quick on their feet.
like we mentioned before, try to intern somewhere or interview somebody for the agency that you would like to work for, and try to understand as much as you possibly can before you get your foot in the door and then you realize 5 years down the road this isn't really what you want to do. So do as much research on the front end as you can as well.
I've got a hand
Two
here
more
and here.
questions?
Well, we'll do those two. Those were the first two up, and then I'll just catch you after. Okay.
Is community service as an alternative harder to come by nowadays?
As far as getting that as what you're sentenced to, or as far as finding something to go and do?
Like sentence-wise.
Typically, you don't get ordered community service as any form of custody time. That's just something on top of the rest of your orders to show that you can also do good in your community. We do what's called work release, which is going to be some level of supervised work, not where you just go and find it on your own. I would say it's actually more common now than ever before.
And there's one penal code that dictates that there's one, anybody that's committed a domestic violence offense, they have to do 20 hours of community service. That's the only time that I know of they actually, it's part of their sentence.
Now I heard you could pay a fine instead of doing community service, but it's up to the judge. Is that true?
Yes, everything is up to the judge.
Yes.
Final question?
Sure.
Are your internships paid, and like how many hours do you get?
They are paid in just the invigoration you will feel in being part of a great team. Other than that, no money. We ask that you put in at least 8 hours per week. So it can be 2 4-hour shifts or 1 8-hour shift, or if you want to do 40 hours a week, that's fine with us as well.
All right. Aaron and Meredith, thank you very much.
Thank you guys.